demolished. Drugs and criminals are pouring in. Our economy is a mess. Our schools are in shambles. Our justice system is corrupt. We have a corrupt justice system. Who would have believed? Our Constitution, he said, I would. Did they give you a hard time too? Did they give you a hard time? Our Constitution is being ripped to shreds. Israel is under attack. And now we have terrorist sympathizers chanting their jihad slogans on our streets, all over our streets. With your vote, we will defend our country. We will defend our Judeo-Christian values, and we will defend Western civilization. And that's what we've got to do, right? What we've got to do. If I were president, the attack on Israel would have never happened, wouldn't have happened. You know, we had Iran in a very good place. They were broke. Yeah, that's a good place. Now they're rich. Ukraine would never have happened. It would have never, ever happened. Putin would never have done it. Inflation would never have happened. That was started with stupid energy problem. You know, they just said, let's not drill. Let's not.
You know, for all the flack he got, for everybody's frustration, oh, Donald Trump's this, that, and the other. I'll tell you one thing, those policies worked. Those policies kept us out of conflict. Those policies kept the economy strong. Those policies did a lot to ensure America. Right, that whole America First agenda that everybody recoiled from. Well, listen, when you lose sight of yourself, when you lose sight of who you are, who your country is supposed to be and always has been, well, then you got problems. Big problems, shall we say. Hello, welcome back to the show. There are some, more than rumors circulating about who might be the vice presidential pick by Donald Trump. I have a little insight into this, and I want to share that with you here today amid all of this breaking news, including U.S. Treasury bonds that are still up near 5%. I mean, this is amazing, guys. Absolutely amazing. The yield on the 10-year continuing to climb, and a lot of fear, I think, out there, a lot of fear about just exactly what lays ahead. If you're concerned, if you're looking to diversify your portfolio, you should give our good friends over at Legacy Precious Metals. You know Charles, you've met him before right here on the show. Gold upwards of $2,000 today. Crude oil slightly down 3.5%. But again, the yield on the 10-year at 4.89. This is really strange stuff. Like, we haven't seen this in a long time, right? And I think those yields might, at least in the short term, continue moving higher. 1-866-589-0560. That is their number over at legacypminvestments.com. All right, so lots going on. I want to get to the VP pick. I think you'll like all the candidates, honestly, but I think there's one that's going to be a standout. And given that I was spot on last time around with Pence, I think I might have a little bit of insight into who might be the best possible fit as a team member, shall we say, for Donald Trump. It's definitely not going to be this guy second time around. Watch. Remember this?
I'm sorry, Mr. Vice President. I know you're running for president. You are distressed that the Ukrainians don't have enough American tanks. Every city in the United States has become much worse over the past 3 years. Yeah. Drive around. There's not one city that's gotten better in the United States. And it's visible. Our economy has degraded. The suicide rate has jumped. Public filth and disorder and crime have exponentially increased. And yet, your concern is that the Ukrainians, a country most people can't find on a map, who've received tens of billions of U.S. tax dollars, don't have enough tanks. I think it's a fair question to ask, where's the concern for the United States in that?
Well, it's not my concern. Tucker, I've heard that routine from you before, but that's not my concern.
I mean, he doubled down. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, Tucker Carlson just single-handedly absolutely ruined Mike Pence's career right there. So, yeah, definitely not going to be Mike Pence second time around. But, it's that, well, that's not my concern, or let's think about this instead of that, that's getting us in a really, really bad spot, in my estimation, right? Because look at what Iran thinks it can do. According to all reports, very good reports now, U.S. intelligence has not confirmed this yet. They may want to keep some powder dry, and they may want to save this one for them when they really need the ammunition. But by most reports, Iran is the one that greenlit Hamas in this horrific attack. They greenlit it. Why? Oh, because they didn't want the Abraham Accord going into effect, which was engineered, by the way, by Donald Trump, by his son-in-law, initially, Jared Kushner. And so the whole idea was you had suddenly the Saudis and the Israelis getting along. Well, that made Iran really, really angry. So what did they do? They used Hamas. They greenlit this operation. They trained them to be terrorists that are worse than ISIS. And now the people in Gaza, sure, they'll pay the price. They'll pay the price. And there's this whole idea or school of thought out there that somehow the U.S. is supposed to hold them back and not, well, for one thing, they're a nuclear power, Israel, that is. So there's not much we can do in terms of holding them back. Second of all, why would we hold them back? I mean, can you imagine after 9/11, someone saying, hey, America, you can't go do what you need to do. You can't go take out Osama bin Laden. No, thank you, right? Anyway, what is just developing right now, this literally just coming in, is that Benjamin Netanyahu has totally ruled out a ceasefire. There had been some momentum, some talk of that there might be a ceasefire. Bibi's like, no way, not happening. There will be no ceasefire. In other words, the ground troops are going to continue moving into Gaza Strip. They are making headway there in this very moment. Israel really firing back as it should, as it really doesn't have a choice. I mean, look, they didn't ask for this. That's what everybody keeps forgetting. These kids on college campuses, these kids at Harvard, right, that with their $215,000 a year Davis Polk law firm jobs. Davis Polk, rightly so, taking away those jobs from those spoiled brats, those kids that somehow want to blame Israel after all of this happened. It's really actually pretty disgusting stuff. But you know what's amazing, guys? What's amazing to me is how it was so darn predictable. All of it. Whether you wanted to talk about inflation, I mean, how many times did I tell you we were going to get terrible inflation? I just mentioned the yield on the 10-year, for goodness sakes. And you know, there's going to be more of it. Trust me. Whether it was going to be inflation, whether it was going to be a really lousy border situation, which, by the way, brings a whole set of security risks, or whether it was going to be international conflict. But you know what? Joe Biden wanted you to think differently. The Democrats wanted you to think that if you stayed with Donald Trump, that actually you'd be heading straight into World War III and a conflict with Iran. He literally went on Vice TV and said to the anchors in 2020, guys, okay? So this is during the campaign. I want you to watch Joe Biden talking about why he worries about Donald Trump. This was like one of the rare appearances that he did. He was kind of all hopped up, very unusual for him. He's really like declined, I would say, in the time since this was recorded. Anyway, watch.
The world has changed because of what Trump has done. And the American people, including independents and some Republicans, know how bad he is, know how much he's misrepresented, know how he's getting close to getting us in a war. I said, as the walls close in on this man, I'm worried he's going to get us to war in Iran. Unfortunately, I may have been right. The fact of the matter is there's a lot at stake in this election.
Oh, yeah, there sure was a whole lot at stake in this election. You know what? You know who was heading us straight into war with Iran? That was the guy that gave him $6 billion. $6 billion just a couple of weeks ago before this all started. Unbelievable. Remember what Trump said about like not giving him any money? Like, why would you give him any money? Not to mention all the money that's going, by the way, not just to Hamas. I mean, we were giving money, right, to Palestine, including the Palestinian Authority for quote unquote humanitarian relief. Now, is any of that getting to the people? I don't think so. I don't think so. And you know what? I have a feeling that, by the way, the reason for that is because the Palestinian Authority is somewhat in bed, shall we say, with Hamas. The Palestinian Authority 2 Fridays ago came out with sort of an edict of what they wanted all the mullahs to say in the mosques. And part of that, and I've quoted from it twice for you before, part of that included the killing of all Jews. So don't tell me that the Palestinian Authority has any clean hands in any of this. We know Hamas doesn't, right? What is it? Article 22 of their charter. It's to wipe out Israel, to kill every Jew. I mean, there's no two-state solution here when one side doesn't want the other to exist. Think about this. Okay, so this is why appeasement doesn't work, right? Neville Chamberlain, think about that. Think about Joe Biden. Think about Barack Obama. This is why you need a Donald Trump with really strong, sort of sharp elbows to say, Iran, it's not going to work. I mean, think about even Israel. They tried to give back some territory in Gaza. They got all those settlements out of there. They even lifted people from their graves. I mean, thousands of homes were relocated to give back more land to the Palestinians. It did absolutely no good at all. No good at all. And the entire world now, including so many Europeans, the anti-Semitism is just disgusting coming out of the likes of France, the UK, elsewhere, all through Europe. The anti-Semitism is awful. Everybody's pointing the finger at Israel, including our academic idiots in the U.S. I mean, let me tell you, it's going to be a big wake-up call for this DEI, CRT nonsense. It's a bunch of garbage that's supposed to make you feel bad because you just happen to have been born a color that's different than someone else. It doesn't take any respect for the individual into heart at all. It's bad stuff, okay? It's bad stuff. And look, from the beginning, think about Patrisse Cullors and her Black Lives Matter movement that, by the way, just lost a $500,000 deal with Sprite, which is the parent or is the subsidiary of Coca-Cola, because Sprite and Coca-Cola were like, whoa, when they saw what Black Lives Matter Chicago was tweeting within minutes of this horrific attack, saying that they stood with Hamas, they stood with Palestine, they stood with terrorists. Well, here's Patrisse Cullors, the founder, back in 2015. Don't kid yourself. These things are aligned. Watch her.
The other thing I'll say is Palestine is our generation South Africa. And if we don't step up boldly and courageously to end the imperialist project that's called Israel, we're doomed. And I think
you see, that's the theme, right? These imperialists, you know, they colonized everyone. That's why you can't say Columbus Day anymore. This is why, you know, you can't kind of like even like walk or talk if you don't fit their little narrative, their little box of political correctness, because you're supposed to bow down, literally, like Drew Barrymore did bow down to the Bud Light gal, if you want to call her that. Right? I mean, it's crazy. And these things are all related. And this is a society that is literally like just destroying itself from within, while simultaneously inching closer to a massive conflict. Here's one of the Iranian officials speaking at the UN just the other day, threatening us.
I say frankly to the American statesmen who are now managing the genocide in Palestine that we do not welcome to expansion of the war in the region. But I warn, if the genocide in Gaza continues, they will not be spared from this fire.
Okay, so the Iranians are basically saying, hey, you know, America, if you allow this thing in Gaza, then it's game over for you. So the tricky thing about all this, keep in mind, is that Iran wants this. So we've got a leader, Joe Biden, along with his Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, that turned over $6 billion in that hostage exchange literally 2 weeks before this all went down on October 7th. And I said at the time, what the heck? Like, why are we paying for hostages? You know, and they tried to defend that and say, oh, well, actually, technically it was their money. I don't care if it was their money. Like, I really don't. And by the way, technically, whatever. Here's the deal. We had sanctions with them. And when you have sanctions, you keep that money. You don't turn it over. And instead, they turned it over, they being Joe Biden and Antony Blinken, two rocket scientists there. And now we're where we are. Because again, sometimes bullies only understand one way of speaking. Donald Trump scared the living daylights out of Iran. And that fear of Donald Trump and what he might do, including not even abiding by any UN regulations. Remember, the UN say, you have to, it's a war crime. If you go after any actual religious sites, they're like, hey, you can't do that. And Donald Trump's like, good luck. Just watch me, try me. We're going to do whatever we need to do. because it's that kind of realism that when you're faced with barbaric animals, you're going to kind of need. So Donald Trump gets that. The street fighter kid from Queens, Joe Biden, Antony Blinken, who I think, with all his fancy degrees, they don't get it. Like, it's head in the clouds stuff. They think if you're just nice to people, you give them $6 billion, that, markets will, I'd like to think that, because I like to think that, capitalism is what prevails and capitalism is what works, blah, blah, blah. But, these people, they're not even interested in capitalism. They don't care about capitalism. They care about other things. They care about power. And part of that means, if they care so much about power, they're not willing to give it up no matter what. Let me see if I can play you. Here is Patrisse Cullors again talking about how capitalism is the real enemy.
Much contact with folks can cause, COVID-19 outbreaks. So
I'm going to just jump in to just familiarize you with this clip. This is her referring to March 2020 and how bad it was. But you know what? You know what was worse than March 2020? She said capitalism. Capitalism is worse.
When police were doing less, quote, policing, because they realized that too much contact with folks can cause, COVID-19 outbreaks. So I really have understood this moment. While the COVID-19 and the illness is tragic, what's more tragic is capitalism. What's more tragic is racism. What's more tragic is our inability to actually create a safety net for communities that are most attacked in this moment by both the crisis and the pandemic of racism, but also the crisis and pandemic of COVID-19.
Okay, so get that? Oh, that's interesting. We should have played all of that. I have a dream where you don't see people by the color of their skin. We'll get to that. Martin Luther King, right? He seems so quaint now, right? This is a radicalized movement. And so they hate Israel and they hate America. I mean, let's be very clear, because America was, part of that imperialist power that took over the land from the Native Americans, and they're never going to let you forget it. And so this now is becoming not just a culture war, but sort of a very internal war, I think, here within the United States of America in a really troubling way. And it's going to be challenging for the Democrats to push through this, because you think about a lot of Democrats and a lot of people of Jewish faith have been part of that Democrat Party for so long and big supporters, right, of so many Democrats. Well, they're now coming out left and right and saying, what has happened? Like, what has happened to my party? What has happened to the country? How is it that anyone could ever justify what's going on? You look at what's happening as we speak at Cornell University, where students are frightened because there have been death threats against Jewish students. That's being referred to the FBI. I have a friend whose son goes to Stanford, is Jewish, and apparently the custodians are just working around the clock to clean the graffiti off of the walls in the basement of the dormitory. This is real, guys. This hate for Israel and for America and for, frankly, anything Western European white, this is not good. This is very scary. I've played you some sound before by the academic Camille Paglia. It's really interesting. She says that when you start to lose faith in yourself, in your society, that actually marks the peak of civilization. And you see it throughout history, in ancient Roman times, in Oscar Wilde's 1890s, in the Weimar Republic, where they just kind of forget who they are and what their value system really is. And so, yes, sure, Joe Biden and Blinken, they think we give them $6 billion. That'll placate the Iranians. Everything will be just great. But because you're dealing with a bully, all that does is empower and enable that bully to take more on. And this is exactly what happened. And so is it naivete? Is it just absolute lack of understanding of how the real world works? I don't know. But now they got themselves a little problem, right? A little problem by way of Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. Then there's this lady, Jayapal from Washington, Democrat, congressional representative on MSNBC. And the anchor was trying to say, hey, you know, look what's going on. I mean, we're sending them all this money and it's, you know, there's talk of a ceasefire. Do you really think that the money's getting to the right people or the ceasefire is going to happen? Look at how this congresswoman responds. She basically issues a warning to Joe Biden. Because again, Israel's at fault somehow, some way. It's always Israel.
Humanitarian agencies have been sending aid through approved partners. And before October 7th, it was about 500 trucks per day. Now, Kristen, since the beginning of this war, we have seen less than 100 trucks delivered. Israel has stopped the fuel from coming in and being delivered by trusted partners. And Kristen, I just think we have to recognize that this is a double standard. The United States rightly called out Russia for its siege of Ukraine, rightly called out the attacks on the power infrastructure, the refusal to provide food and water and fuel to the Ukrainians. And we have to recognize that our credibility and our authority on the moral stage is greatly diminished if we do not also call out this siege that Israel is launching on Gaza as violations of international law. We are losing credibility, and frankly, we're being isolated in the rest of the world.
So Joe Biden, watch out. You're going to be isolated in the rest of the world because, you know, the rest of the world is anti-Semitic. Unbelievable. You know, it's bad. And there's plenty more where that came from all over the world. The footage keeps coming, and every day I was looking at something on London Bridge just last night. It's really tragic. And I'm like, who are these people? Why are they so disgusting in that they have no appreciation for human life, no ability to understand what just transpired? It's like, okay, I'm going to punch out at you. You have no right to punch back. It's like, you know, when the guy gets arrested that was running the small corner store in New York City because someone came in and started stealing and like threatened him. And then he fired back. I believe he took the guy's life. And then he's the one that's being threatened with jail because you're not allowed to do anything. You're just supposed to sit back while they attack you, while they rape young women, while they burn elderly, while they decapitate children. You're going to sit back and say, I'm just going to take it? I don't think so, okay? And what really ticks me off about the administration right now, sorry, I'm getting all heated and get my Irish up. You know what? It's bad. These people, KJP, I don't know if she just didn't understand the question. It's quite possible. Or if she's just that messed up in her thinking. But both her and Kirby, they keep, every time they're asked about anti-Semitism in the U.S., of which there is now a ton, and it's all over the world, what do? Oh, they defend Muslims, who, by the way, aren't making a ton of headlines. I don't see college campuses having to call the FBI for all the threats on Muslims right now. No. But yet, don't forget, that's the issue, right? Here's KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre, being asked specifically about anti-Semitism, and she reacts because she's so concerned about Muslims.
His level of concern right now about the potential rise of anti-Semitism in light of everything that's going on in Israel?
So a couple of things. We have not seen any credible threats. I know there's been always questions about credible threats, and so just want to make sure that that's out there. But look, Muslim and those perceived to be Muslim have endured a disproportionate number of hate-fueled attacks. And certainly President Biden understands that many of our...
Okay, again, the question was about anti-Semitism. But no. For her, it's all about Muslim attacks.
Muslim, Arab. Arab Americans and Palestinian American loved ones and neighbors are worried about the hate being directed at their communities, and that is something you heard the president speak to in his address just last Thursday. And so one of the things that the president has done is directed his team, Homeland Security team, to prioritize prevention and disruption of any emerging threats that could harm the Jewish, the Muslim, Arab Americans, or any other communities.
Okay.
And that is
Okay,
something
so
that the
she
president
finally
has
mentioned
sought
Jews,
to do.
okay? So you've had all of these threats against Jewish people, Jewish students here in the U.S., and she finally gets around to it. John Kirby went on CNN this morning to remind everyone it's not just the anti-Semitism, which is really bad, but, you know, we have to worry about Muslims too in this environment. And don't get me wrong, I'm not like saying that anything is justified here. It's just kind of weird to me. And there's a political motivation behind it, which I'm going to get to, but listen to Kirby.
I do want to ask you about what's happening here at home, and specifically, John, on college campuses. Jewish students at Cornell University, and this is just one example, by the way, were targeted in these online threats that included threats to shoot Jewish students at their kosher dining hall. So that building's now closed off. We've seen a number of anti-Semitic threats since the war began here. How does the White House characterize the threat to our Jewish community here at home? And what will the White House do to try to keep them safe?
That threat's rising, Poppy. No question about it. I mean, in 2022, there were more anti-Semitic events in this country than there had been since 1979. And in this year, in 23, we continue to see that rise. It's dangerous. It's unacceptable. Anywhere in the world, certainly here in the United States of America. And so what we're doing is we're working very closely at a federal level with state and local authorities to be able to better identify threats to the Jewish community and disrupt them before they can actually take action. We're working on that very, very hard. Now, there's obviously also a rise in anti-Muslim hate and activity as well. We're watching that very, very closely. But this is unacceptable. Unacceptable in the United States of America in 2023.
Okay, no, he's right. It is unacceptable, but it's just interesting. He really had to sandwich that in there because you're going to keep hearing that over and over and over again. And as I explained, there's a political reason for it, like this.
And to my president, to our president, yes, he's still on. Well, hold on. I want him to know, as a Palestinian American, is also somebody of Muslim faith, I'm not going to forget this. And I think a lot of people are not going to forget this. And it's not a threat. It isn't. They think we're joking. I mean, I think the White House and everyone thinks that we're just going to sit back and let this just continue to happen. No. The fact of the matter is, our lives are not safe with you or the forever peach president. When are we going to feel safe? When are we going to stop funding continued, literally, oppression of indigenous communities? When are we going to say enough? It makes me so angry to have to say it, but I'm telling you, I'm talking to people that literally are like me. They literally believed in this party that was supposed to be inclusive of all of our opinions and our views and our political stance and all of these things.
Inclusive unless you're Jewish, right? In which case somehow now like it's a free for all. Listen, guys, I mean, it's not just about the Jews because this is bigger than that, right? I mean, it's in and of itself, it's entirely wrong. But this whole idea of Black Lives Matter, of CRT, of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, it's all based on this idea that somehow the Westerners are the problem. I heard it over and over and over and over again when I was down in Venezuela. Gosh, this would have been a zillion years ago because Chavez was still alive. And I was trying to get an interview with Hugo Chavez. And so I followed him all over Venezuela, basically, from speech to speech. And boy, could that guy talk. Like he would just go and go and go and go. And it was always the same thing. It was always the white European that colonized Venezuela, and therefore your life is miserable because of them. And so this is a narrative that communists, Marxists employ. I mean, Black Lives Matter, self-described proud Marxists, okay? This is how they were trained. And people here in the U.S., I guess, are too nice and too stupid to figure that one out. Look, we've certainly had our history as a country, and I'm not saying that there aren't pockets of the country that are still racist. There are. But I'll tell you, you know what? We've come a long way, baby. We elected a black president twice. We have a black female vice president who, well, let's just say she's kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. Not the brightest woman, tends to laugh too much. But you know what? Barack Obama, even if you hated him, he was a bright man and extremely skilled at what he did. He got what he wanted through. And part of what he wanted through was sort of some kind of deal with Iran. Don't forget. I mean, this is where it all started. This is where it started. Barack Obama telling us that somehow we had to make good on the $400 million that we owed Iran because of international law. Well,
timing of this was in fact dictated by the fact that as a consequence of us negotiating around the nuclear deal, we actually had diplomatic negotiations and conversations with Iran for the first time in several decades. So the issue is not so much that it was a coincidence as it is that we were able to have a direct discussion. John Kerry could meet with the foreign minister, which meant that our ability to clear accounts on a number of different issues at the same time converged. And it was important for us to take advantage of that opportunity, both to deal with this litigation risk that had been raised. It was important for us to make sure that we finished the job on the Iran nuclear deal. And since we were in a conversation with them, it was important for us to be able to push them hard in getting these Americans out.
Oh, yeah, you pushed them really hard, sending pallets of money. Swiss francs, euros, cash, 400 million in cash with the promise of 1.3 billion in total, right? 1.7 billion, forgive me, 1.3 was on the way. That was 400 million was the down payment. And then this happens, right? So, you know, it's clear Iran took our soldiers, if you're watching this, and then humiliated them on international television. It is clear we've made so many mistakes, and yet we've made them again. We made them again when we gave Iran $6 billion just the other day, and yet Blinken says, oh, don't worry.
Is that what you have technically done now by stopping distribution from that account?
As I said, there has been no distribution of the accounts. There wasn't a question of stopping it. There hasn't been any. And we retain the right to formally freeze it.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, I just want to point out, if you saw on the screen there, one of our viewers, thank you, Stephen. We have been raising money here at the Trish Regan Show for the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. And it's a wonderful, wonderful foundation. They have an emergency fund. And I put it in the chat. If you guys, you know, even at the end of the show, we'll put it in the show notes as well. If you have it in your heart to give them something, anything, every dollar counts right now. It really does for these people. And it's just sort of, I think, showing that we care about Israel. What happened was not right. And I know we can't change anything in a huge way, but just showing our support however we can. For me anyway, as I talk about this story, just being able to have an outlet to try and do some good really, really matters. So again, we'll put the phone number in the show notes. It's 1-800-248-888. 3 8s and then a 1. And I know that I just put it into the comments as well. But look, I mean, we've got sort of the B team here running the operation, and even Liz Cheney gets it. Even Liz Cheney was just on CNN saying, you know what, Biden's made a ton of mistakes.
And got justice. We also made mistakes.
Given the goal of not just defeating Hamas, but a long-term goal of Israel living in peace, of a two-state solution, if that's even a serious proposition anymore. What lessons do you think we have learned as a country that we could tell Israel, that we could share with Israel?
Well, look, I think probably the biggest mistake that we made post 9/11 was President Biden's decision to withdraw from Afghanistan the way that he did. I think the biggest lesson that we've learned, and frankly, after 9/11, the fact that the steps we took for over 20 years now have prevented another mass casualty terrorist attack at the hands of Islamic terrorists is something that we all ought to be very clear about and we ought to remember.
Right,
the
we ought to
lesson that
remember,
we've learned,
except let's also, as she said, and you know, I'm not any big Liz Cheney fan, But as she said, look, we got out of Afghanistan too darn fast. It was such a darn mess the way we got out. Because Biden wanted to be the one to get out, not just even by the 20-year anniversary, but before the 20-year anniversary. And in doing so, we left a whole bunch of equipment there, et cetera. I mean, why would you do these things, right? Because you don't have any kind of planning in place. You're trying to pull all these levers for what? Prestige with the press? Prestige with Black Lives Matter and Patrisse Cullors and Ilhan Omar? I mean, what was that about? Why did you need to get out so fast? Because all you did was you left the weaponry behind. And we're now getting word, some reports, it's believed that that weaponry from Afghanistan that we left behind is what Hamas, the terrorist, brutal, barbarian organization, is using to kill Israelis. I want to point out, if you're joining us just live, we are going to talk about the vice presidential pick of Donald Trump in just a moment. But all of this breaking news coming into us right now, Israel is moving its tanks right into Gaza City. They have actually, this is wonderful news, been able to rescue some of the hostages. So that's a very, very, very good sign. So some good news there. Again, Israeli forces advancing on Gaza City. They're trying to encircle effectively that population. And we have learned that they did rescue a couple, I believe, I don't want to overstate this, Private Ori Megadish, a soldier taken captive who was taken captive on October 7th. There was the death of that young woman from Germany, Shani Lok. We had seen her picture and over and over and over again in the news. She was just 22 years old. Her parents were holding out hope that she had been found, but that was not the case. They have found her skull. She was decapitated along with hundreds of others. Okay, so these people are animals, and they are such animals that if you look at this, guys, I showed you this on Friday, but I want to show you again. If you look at where they are strategically placing their military ops, it's beneath the hospital, because they want to basically be able to say when the military ops are getting taken out, oh, well, they went after a hospital. This is coming to us from the IDF, but they did a pretty in-depth analysis. Stay with me here. I'm going to walk you through it. This is a video of the hospital there in Gaza. And you see, it looks like a normal hospital. And then, they've been trying to locate basically where all these Hamas fighters are. And what you see right here is this is the location of the Hamas underground complex, another Hamas underground complex right above, say, the maternity department. Think about that. They're putting their top people underneath the maternity department at this Gaza Strip hospital. They've got some generators there as well that they put right there in the hospital for a reason, right? For a reason, because they want to be able to say, oh, well, the Israelis took out a hospital. This is why they needed to go in on a ground operation. Nobody wanted the ground operation. The U.S., Biden apparently was even trying to dissuade them. Why would you dissuade them given what has happened? I mean, you can't just roll over and play dead. This is, you got to pull a Trump. I'm sorry, but you just do. And I'll tell you, I spent time in both interviewing on and nothing was really off the record with him. He was pretty forthcoming, as you all know. But I had spoken to him not on television, even about when we were getting out of Syria, and was really pushing him on it. He was so adamant about not losing American lives, but simultaneously being very strong in the face of the world. In other words, America represents something. And so if you want to be an isolationist, if you don't want to have to go to war, then you better be ready and willing, right? It's like, hey, I've said this before, you want to leave a job, right? And you're thinking about leaving, you're thinking about quitting, you've got to be willing to quit. You've got to be willing to say, see you later. Because if they call your bluff, you're out. I think the real expression is make sure you have another job lined up, right? Before you really go in there and tell them it's all over. But in the case of this, we don't seem to have a lot of organization around anything that's happening. And the fact that this happened, the fact that everything has happened, I mean, my goodness, the Afghanistan disaster. And then you couple in Putin going into Ukraine. I mean, wow. awful, right? And I get it. Like we're trying to help Ukraine, but where was the diplomacy? I keep going back to that. And if it's not diplomacy, it's where's the fear factor? Thank you very much. If that had been Donald Trump in office, I have a feeling there would have been more diplomacy. And Vladimir Putin might not have pulled off what he was doing because he wouldn't have even tried, because he wouldn't have felt so threatened by NATO. But when Biden came in, there was this big NATO threat and everything like spun out of control. And clearly you don't have good communicators there at all, like really bad communicators, to say the least. And so consequently, he became far more aggressive. Now, some people might think, well, maybe that was by design. It's kind of disgusting to even think that. But, I get it. Like some people are thinking like, strategically, does the United States sort of want to tie up Russia in a way that keeps it so engaged there in Ukraine so as to defocus, destabilize it? I'll tell you, Trump destabilized everyone and got everyone sort of focused, all messed up without going to war. Like that didn't have to happen. People didn't have to die. He just freaked them out because he gotten on a plane and went down and hung out with Kim Jong-un. Right? Like that sent shockwaves through the world and through even China, right? They're like, wait, what are you doing hanging out with our friend? I mean, there were ways that he had where he kept everyone guessing, kept everyone off kilter, and it was actually successful in ensuring peace. I don't know if it would have ensured peace forever, but I'll tell you this, Iran was really, really scared. They were all scared of him. And now we're striking in Syria, right? Because we got to take out these particular spots in Syria because they were striking at our warships and our assets overseas. And this is, they were saying, this is the guy from the Pentagon saying, well, I hope they get the message. Yeah, I hope they get the message, for goodness sakes. Watch.
Right, which you already did. You took action. So what kind of response do you expect from Iran?
Well, we'll see. We'll see if Iran gets the message. But, as we've done in the past, we certainly reserve the right to take additional strikes and continue to ensure that the message is loud and clear, that we will protect our forces and that these kinds of attacks are unacceptable. I'm not going to telegraph potential actions in the future other than to say, as we demonstrated last night, we will do so at a time and place of our choosing.
General, yesterday you confirmed.
Unacceptable. Indeed, unacceptable. But I need more power. Do you need more power, right? Like I want to feel that there is a more powerful message. And given that we gave him $6 billion and we still have good old Blinken saying that he hasn't fully taken it back, right? We have the right to freeze it, but then why haven't we? I mean, some people are saying, well, we sort of have. No. Like you sanction more. Right? That's a message that they'll get. That's a message they'll understand. And for some reason, this administration just isn't doing it. And so I think they're in way over their heads. These were the kids that were too cool for school, right? Donald Trump was the dummy who just happened to keep us out of war, who just happened to create the most prosperous middle class. We're talking median income, the rise in median income before March 2020. It was growing at the fastest pace we had seen in some 50 years. So good economic policy, good international policy. I mean, look, he was upset about the border because we had a problem even then. Well, if you thought we had a problem even then, look at the problem we have now. Since October 1st, we have word from Border Patrol of upwards of 100 people who are on the known terror list coming to us from the Middle East. Not to mention 2,000 people from China. I don't know what that's about. So they're going from China to Latin America, up through Mexico to our country. I mean, we have had our eyes so far off the ball. Why? Oh, because we're so concerned about all those MAGA people, those people that are showing up at the school board meetings that are worried because you get some books that, let's just say, even if they were heterosexual, shouldn't be in the school library, let alone on display saying, here, kids, read this. I mean, I'm not about banning books. Don't get me wrong. You can keep that at the town library in the adult section, all right? Go for that. But you don't put them on display. So anyway, suddenly now you're a problem. You're a threat. You're an extremist. If you're just trying to protect your kid and make sure they're not getting indoctrinated by a bunch of nonsense so that one day they'll come out and maybe If they're lucky enough to go to Harvard, but of course they won't be because, Harvard's its own little thing, they're going to be stupid enough to come out and stand with terrorists. I mean, the education system, honestly, is just deteriorating before our very eyes. It's disgusting, all that has happened. And this administration really and truly is to blame. But it's more than this administration. I mean, I think that's what you can't lose sight of, because there's been a sort of hate towards America, a hate towards Israel, a hate towards Western Europeans that's very prevalent. And the more you go down that rabbit hole, the more you keep apologizing, the more you're just sorry for being alive, the more they will take advantage, the more you're going to have a problem. I'm sorry. The answer is, you know what? Hey, guess what? You don't want women to walk around in mini skirts or be able to show their hair or be able to go to school. Well, sorry. This is the law. Women are allowed to do that. And instead, there's this whole kowtowing. Well, it's their culture. It's their culture. It's their. Well, I'm sorry. If they're living here, it's our culture. Okay. We used to be a melting pot. We took the best of everybody's culture. We brought it together and we were American because of it. And now we're too afraid to do that because somebody's going to get insulted. No, I don't think so. Anyway, we got a big election coming up. And right now, let me give you some new poll numbers that just came out of Des Moines, Iowa. So look, Trump is way ahead in New Hampshire, my home state, live free or die. He wasn't necessarily, how do I say this? I think there's a lot of people in New Hampshire that would be, and Nikki Haley's been soaring in the polls there in New Hampshire, would be very interested in Nikki Haley, would be very interested in like a Vivek Ramaswamy. They were open to a lot of different ideas. Nonetheless, he's really got it locked up. And I think given the events of late, there's no question. So the other big one, of course, is Iowa. And this is pretty interesting. He's got 43% of the vote there, the Republican vote, according to the Des Moines Register. DeSantis is coming in second, but he's been dropping like a really heavy rock to the bottom of the pond. Haley's picking up some of those votes there. But I don't really see any other way to slice this. I am pretty darn sure it's going to be Donald Trump at the top of the Republican ticket. And so then the question becomes the most interesting one, I think, politically, becomes who in fact would be the vice presidential pick for Donald Trump. Before I get to that, again, not to tease you, I'm curious to see your reactions. Again, this is a live show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you. If you're not listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure that you subscribe, actually. We'll put this in there for you. We'll put this for you so that you can go and go to that link as well. Let me just try and do that. It's not easy. I'm like, balancing a bunch of stuff at once, but I'd like to have the link to the Apple Podcasts in there because you should, if you would, subscribe to that as well. So we'll try and get that up. So a lot of you guys are looking, Tulsi, you know what? That would be interesting. Tulsi Gabbard would certainly be interesting. I know you guys, Josh Hawley, I'm seeing some of these names. Nikki Haley, you don't like her. Okay, interesting. Kati's saying, she doesn't think that it's a Vivek thing. Interesting thing on Vivek is that, I think he needs like a little more seasoning. He needs a little more time. He's got a lot of great ideas. He's been on the show. I was really impressed by his thought process, but he kind of needs, dare I say, a little bit of maturity in that, he needs to be able to kind of just slow down, drink a little less coffee, and really think things through. What I like about Vivek is that he's self-funded, right? It is, everybody who's like somehow beholden to someone is a little tricky for me. I see a lot of you talking about Ron DeSantis. Let's see here. Don, you think it'll be the woman from South Dakota, Kristi Noem, possibly? That's what you guys are saying. She could be, except that she's from South Dakota, and nothing against South Dakota. I actually love it. I know the greatest people from South Dakota, but it's not one of those sort of big states in terms of carrying a lot of political weight. And so just being the realist that Trump is, if he goes around the circle, now he's going to look, obviously it's not going to be DeSantis, right? DeSantis, I don't know why he even ever decided to run, because the smart play would have been exactly what Ted Cruz did out of Texas. You just sit and watch, right? Because you're not gonna be able to take it from him. And so you're only running the risk of really annoying a lot of the party. And then if you look at some of the things that Ron DeSantis has done, it sort of surprised me because it's all very Trump-like, and then some. Sometimes a little bit like Trump on steroids, and sometimes he doesn't even seem that nice when he's doing it, right? So it's sort of a Trump 2.0 in not a way that endears himself to the public. I've talked about this before. I think one of his challenges is, I'm sure he's very smart. I mean, Harvard, Yale, all that good stuff. Not that that means anything these days. Certainly doesn't. I actually am more impressed out of the University of Florida. The president, Ben Sass, saying some very smart things on the University of Florida. But anyway, you know, he's got all the academic credentials, chose to have a career in politics. And I think that's part of the problem, right? He's yet to sort of figure out who he is. Part of being a politician, or frankly, even a podcast host, right, is kind of knowing who you are and being willing to stand for something and to have an opinion, to be able to back it up, and to not be afraid. And the other quality that matters is the je ne sais quoi, right? Which is, do you have the personality and do you have the presence? And I think the tough thing for Ron DeSantis is he's probably, I'm not a psychoanalyst on this, but he's probably very shy and he doesn't really seem to love people. Trump, on the other hand, is not shy, like at all, and actually really likes people. Like really enjoys them. He's like feeds off of that energy. And so that's the kind of politician that typically tends to be successful. I mean, if you just go back in modern history, you think about Bill Clinton. I know a lot of you hate him, but you know what? Bill Clinton had it going on in terms of liking people and really having some charisma. The other one was Reagan, of course. Reagan, an actor, loved to be out there. I used to talk to Ed Rollins about this. You know, he'd be in the green room because my show was on at 8 o'clock and Lou Dobbs was on at 7 on Fox Business. And Ed was a regular guest. We got to get him on over here. And he would tell me all these great Reagan stories. I just loved it. And one of them was that Reagan just had to get out there. He was on his staff, of course. Reagan just had to get out there. Like he had to talk to the people. He had to meet with them. He had to engage with them. That was Ronald Reagan. That was his oxygen. And he was also, and this may differ a little bit from Trump, he was very good at delegating and he was very good at picking a great staff. I mean, hey, he had Art Laffer, right? And Larry Kudlow and Ed Rollins. So he had very good people around him. So that mattered. So again, let's just like talk about that. Somebody referenced, that's interesting, Tucker Carlson. You see, Tucker's way too smart for that. Way too smart, I promise you. If you didn't see it, by the way, go watch the interview I did. I believe it aired Friday with the gentleman who runs AM Greatness, American Greatness, Chris Buskirk. And Chris is one of the financial backers, a big financial backer, the sort of seed money behind Tucker Carlson's new media company. Anyway, Tucker's really smart. And not to say politicians aren't, but I think that he's perfectly happy starting his new venture with his new business and would not be interested in running for vice president. Also, and this is important for where I'm taking you, Donald Trump would not be interested in Tucker Carlson as his sidekick. I don't think Donald Trump is really interested in anyone who is going to effectively steal any of the oxygen out of the room. Well, what do I mean by that? In that Donald Trump is the star. So who is your supporting cast member there? I hate to talk about it in such sort of crude terms, but I will because that's, I mean, I said when I saw Pence, and I knew Pence, I had actually sat next to him at a dinner at Larry Kudlow had a going away party at CNBC. I remember sitting with him and, you know, he was then the Indiana governor and thinking this guy's really nice and very smart. And it was a big dinner, a big group event. I say that because everybody jokes about how he doesn't have dinner with women, right? But anyway, I was like, well, he's not, how do I say? He's not going to suck all the oxygen out of the room. In other words, he's going to let Donald Trump be the star. So now let's go down the list, right? We know it's not DeSantis. For the reasons I just explained, it can't really be Tucker Carlson. So, you know, all the people that are out there, would Nikki Haley be a possibility? I mean, she's kind of said a lot of bad things about him. Could he forgive that? Possibly. I mean, he forgave Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz forgave him for having insulted his wife's looks and also having called his father one of the assassins of JFK. So, hey, I mean, political class is like, they're able to kind of forgive and forget in a way that I certainly never could. So Nikki Haley could be a possibility. I say that because I think it would make some of those in the quote unquote donor class happy. And she has international experience, and they reportedly had a good working relationship when she was there working for him. So she also wouldn't suck all the oxygen out of the room. She'd kind of, stand by his side and be patient, et cetera, et cetera. So Nikki Haley could be. I still haven't gotten to who I really am putting the money on. Carrie Lake, I know you guys love her. I mean, she's running now for Senate in Arizona. She's great as a campaigner. She's great alongside him. And I see what you're saying, because she's a really strong woman and really sort of can tell the press to go to HELL in a way that only she and probably Donald Trump can. I think she has a huge, huge future in the party, but I could see her as a cabinet member more than I could see her as VP. And I'm going to tell you why. Only again, because who is that sort of Mike Pence-y kind of, will just be a little bit more reserved, right? You compare Nikki Haley and Carrie Lake and Tucker Carlson, not to make it a woman thing, right? And there's a couple people up on stage, both former television presenters, right, that really have it going on in terms of being very dynamic and being great speakers, et cetera. And so it's for that reason I don't necessarily, knowing him, see him picking them. I could be wrong, hey, definitely not Tucker. Tucker would never do it. But Carrie Lake, again, I could be wrong. She's got a ton of sort of pizzazz, and I think would really ignite the base in a wonderful way. But you don't even need to ignite the base. The base is ignited. Like, people are frustrated at everything that's going on, from the economy to the border to international issues. Kirsty is interesting. I'm seeing In the Loop saying it could be Kirsty Noem out of South Dakota. Now, Kirsty, I think, has a little bit of that, and I mean this in a positive way. I don't mean this to sound negative in any way, shape, or form, but she has a little bit of that Mike Pence thing going on, in that Mike Pence was a good-looking guy, and he kind of just, would stand next to Trump and sort of, do what he was told and that kind of thing, and until he didn't. Anyway, so Mike Pence was sort of, and I think Governor Noem out of South Dakota could probably play that role as well. She's a beautiful woman. She is a well-spoken, very articulate woman. A woman would help, but she's from South Dakota, right? Where there are no people, and therefore you don't have that many electoral votes. And so that could be a strike against her. Vivek, forget about it. Like, I know Vivek is, he said on my show right here, he said that he's not interested in vice president. He's running for the big kahuna job. But Vivek, I think Trump appreciates and likes, and he's said some interesting commentary, like, he's a good kid, but he's got a ways to go. I think he likes Vivek, but I think that Vivek is just running so fast and so hard that it wouldn't gel with his personality. So we're going to continue going down. Who did we put on the screen that I have missed, right? So Kirsty, she might have a shot. It's just the South Dakota thing. Mike Pence, definitely not. Tucker Carlson, I know you guys love Tucker, but no, I don't think Tucker would ever do that. Carrie Lake, Vivek, no. So what about the guy who we thought was going to get Speaker of the House? I'm talking about Byron Donald. I'm just throwing this out there. I'm starting to hear this from people in the Republican community. So he's from Florida. He's black. He's got a financial background. Hallelujah. Right? The guy was a money manager. I said to him when he came on the show, I'm like, this is so refreshing to actually talk to somebody who knows something about the economy. Wow. And he wouldn't be like, me, right? Right. That's the fear with some of the bigger personality types. So could it be Byron Donald? I mean, it's just, again, I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. And maybe some of you are going to be disappointed, because I know you certainly, hey, somebody's saying me. Hey, guys, I'm like Tucker. I'm too smart. There's no way. Politics it's tough enough doing this, right? Like, they take enough shots at you doing this. It's not that, look, I mean, I think it's wonderful to serve your country. We need more people that are so willing to serve their country. I feel like in my own small little way, I'm trying to do my part here. But in terms of who's really out there that would help him politically, that would be diverse, right? So if he has someone that's black, I mean, Tim Scott is another one that people have talked about, but he hasn't really like gone after Trump hard, but he doesn't have the financial background that a Byron Donalds has. And so Byron was asked about this on my former colleague Maria Bartiromo's show just today. And he said, well, you know what? I'm not counting anything out. He hasn't asked me yet, but I'm not counting anything out. So again, I think that's the one to watch. I said this with Pence. I'm going to say this with Byron Donalds. I think that he certainly has got a great future in the Republican Party. All of these people do, but he is definitely one to watch. Some of you saying Gates, but you need him in the House. I don't think Gates would be it. Again, the oxygen thing, guys, right? He wants somebody who's going to complement him. You know, in television, you have, or in any sport, right? Like you think about the quarterback versus the rest of the team. The quarterback's the quarterback. I think sometimes, you know, in TV, one of the reasons why Don Lemon had that failed show on CNN with those two sidekicks, Poppy and Caitlin, right, next to him, was that Don was the, I want to be the star. And I don't want to equate Donald Trump with Lemon. Two very different Dons, right? One is a lemon. But anyway, it's that same sort of thing where you're trying to manage personalities. So who has the right personality to sort of help support him, but simultaneously not be in competition? And then you want to make sure that they have the sort of political stature, right? So they're going to check certain boxes. I hate to say it that way, but right. So it's a woman or it's a minority, et cetera, et cetera. So we shall see. But Jesse, he seems to agree with me that the guy who we thought was going to get Speaker of the House and didn't, but by the way, finally, we have a Speaker of the House, and I'm excited about that, and I think this guy's going to be good. But I think that there might still be something out there for Byron Donalds. We shall see. So I told you about the 10-year yield, right? I mean, this is amazing to me that we are up at 5%. You know, nobody thought that could happen. But then again, nobody thought the Federal Reserve would print and print and print and then print some more, which is exactly what they did. I mean, it's just absolutely bizarre that the Federal Reserve did that. And all while simultaneously, and this is under McCarthy, by the way, Kevin McCarthy, we gave out so much money. We gave out, I mean, it's just unbelievable. The trillions of dollars being spent to pump up our economy. What do you think is going to happen? You are going to have a problem. And indeed, we have one right now with inflation. And so, again, it's just shocking to see the 10-year yield at, it's gone up since I was here talking to you at the beginning of the show. We are currently at 4.895%. That's the yield on the 10-year Treasury. So when that goes up, guess what? Everything else goes up as well in terms of capital costs. So if you want to, say, get a mortgage, right, you're going to pay more for that mortgage because you're going to have a higher interest rate. Same with your credit cards, et cetera. And so this just creates a more challenging economic environment. The thinking is the higher rates will cause people to spend less and kind of put a lid on inflation, but thus far it's not really been happening. If you're concerned about inflation, if you're looking to diversify, you should call my friends at Legacy Precious Metals. You've seen Charles a lot. Sometimes he pops on, he's in the chat with us. Charles Thornton runs the place. They were my first sponsor on this show, so very proud of that. 1-866-589-0560, 1-866-589-0560 is Legacy Precious Metals. But we got something going on, and none of this is good. One other story I want to get to, because, you know, we talk a lot about wokeness here, and whether you're seeing it in politics, whether you're seeing it in sort of the response of some of these Ivy League institutions to Hamas and to Israel and to the insanity that anybody would actually support or condone that. It's really just wild. And these kids from pretty fancy schmancy places, right? The likes of Harvard, Princeton, Yale, my own alma mater, Columbia University. You've had to see so many billionaires, Jewish billionaires that were, you know, probably a lot of them are Democrats and drank the Kool-Aid. I think, you know, people are just waking up to, wait a second. Like they mean us too. Like they want to come after us too. Yes, because this is a tough world in which we live. And so this wokeness has just transcended absolutely, positively everything in really kind of negative, disastrous ways for our culture and for our economy and for our future. But in terms of culture, one of the latest to feel the pressure is none other than Walt Disney. You know the Disney company, right? Here is the CEO. This is Bob Iger. Back this summer, he said he was looking to sell some of the assets, including ABC News, which owns The View. So the good news for all of you that really hate The View and really despise watching, Whoopi Goldberg. Well, this is a little, kind of rainbow at the end of the tunnel.
Transformative work is dealing with businesses that are no-growth businesses and what to do about them, and particularly the linear business, which we are expansive in our thinking about, and we're going to look expansively about opportunities there because clearly it's a business that is going to continue to struggle.
Well, let's stop there for a second then and let me ask you about it. We're talking, I guess, ABC, the network, the stations, but then the cable networks as well.
Yes, correct.
FX, Nat Geo. Is it possible you would look to sell them?
We're going to be expansive. I think if you can interpret what that word means.
It means he's going to sell them. He's going to sell them. And so he's trying to put together this woke company that kind of is really, really broken, thanks to the political culture and the willingness of the former CEO to just go along with it all. And by the way, not that he's not woke himself, right? I mean, I think Bob Iger is a card-carrying Democrat, but I think the realization of what this has meant is pretty significant for Disney. Just look at shares of Disney. And they tell quite a bit of the story. I mean, it's why they brought Bob Iger back, because they were just hemorrhaging. Anyway, so they have this new version of Snow White that they want to do. And it's come under, how do we say, a little bit of attack. So here's the actress. Rachel Zegler is her name. And she is not exactly making herself very popular. The reason this is relevant right now is because all those rumors about Snow White, the production changes, the cast changes, well, they're now turning out to be true. Apparently, wokeness only gets you so far. Here's Rachel Zegler just dumping all over Snow White and the story.
I mean, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
So no prince, or a different kind of prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. Yeah. It's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Oh, yeah, Hollywood, baby. We can just knock the man right out of the script, right? Well, so none of this was really going over well. I mean, she said a whole series of things and basically, what, really, this is all Snow White ever wanted to do was marry someone, meet the love of her life. And people are like, yeah, it's kind of important to meet the love of your life. That's kind of one of the main things that you should actually set out to do. So that has not gone over well. But as of yet, these changes have not yet included her. Instead, they're actually the dwarfs that are going to be affected because, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And Disney spent a year and a whole lot of money trying to figure out how they were going to deal with this whole dwarf thing. This, I guess you're supposed to say short stature. They didn't know how they would manage this. So they said to themselves, well, forget about it. We won't manage it. We'll just have 6 tall people and 1 dwarf. So that didn't fly either. That didn't fly because you know what? The small people community are like, wait a second. So now we're getting rejected too. I don't know. I got to put this meme up on Shorts, you guys, for you, because there was one going around on the weekend. It was Cartwell from South Park saying, I keep having this recurring nightmare. I've been canceled. And they show him as a black woman instead of the white boy that he is. So anyway, it's kind of funny. And that's sort of what happened to these dwarfs, right? Like all the short people in Hollywood were like, I'm going to get a gig. They're remaking Snow White. Well, except that you're not going to get one because you're, I guess, not part of the chosen group now. You have to have, a woman, a man, a certain demographic reflected, period, end of story. Well, I'll tell you, I love it because there's another Snow White coming out. Actually, Brett Cooper, who's over at the Daily Wire, is going to star in it. And the Daily Wire has like a venture capital arm, Benke Productions. They're trying to do a whole bunch of things of new media for kids. And it's so important right now, guys, because again, with everything that's happened and sort of this just brainwashing of American children and American students, I think it's important that people actually stand up and start to offer an alternative. And you want that alternative, right? That you know that you can take your kids to see. And so I think that it's going to give the Disney Snow White a run for its money. Pretty neat. Hey, if you haven't subscribed, do me that favor. Make sure that you do. I'm looking at all your comments. Don, great to see you. Yeah, it's right. It's so crazy. It's nuts. The prince's storyline is going to be, he's going to be gutted, I guess, right? She said that's a possibility. We'll see. Anyway, Abel, good to see you back here as well. You're funny. You guys are all very funny. I love hearing from you, and I get a kick out of all your comments always. So thank you again for being here, part of our little community here on the Trish Regan Show. I think it's really special what we've been able to do. We're getting up there. We're like 155,000 subs or so, maybe 157. I saw just the other day. So keep telling people, tell your friends, share it, like it, do all that good stuff. All of it matters. I'm also on Rumble. I'm on Facebook Live, and I'm on Twitter Live. I think we got up on Twitter Live. Dare I say Twitter? X. It's a new world. And wow, they're really out to get Elon Musk. I'll save that story for another day. It is so good to have you here. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk tomorrow.